Hello and welcome to Zodiac Signs Explained video series. In this series, I talk about each zodiac sign, what gives them their famous and infamous qualities, as well as give celebrity examples that illustrate each zodiac sign very well. In this video, we're going to focus on the Gemini zodiac sign, so if you're curious to learn more, keep on watching. Hello, my name is Elena. I'm a professional Vedic astrologer. On my channel, I talk a lot about astrology, zodiac signs, planets, forecasts, spirituality, so if you're into this sort of thing, then be sure to subscribe to my channel. Before we get started, please know that I am a Vedic astrologer, so all of the birth charts and all of the zodiac sign placements I will reference are using the sidereal zodiac, which is different to what you might be familiar with if you were a Western astrology practitioner. If you're completely new to astrology altogether and you don't know what the difference is between the Vedic astrology and the more commonly known Western sun sign astrology, be sure to check out my video where I talk about these differences. Also, as a Vedic astrologer, I just want to remind you that it is always recommended to consider your rising or your moon sign before your sun sign when applying zodiac sign qualities or when reading forecasts and transits. And if you're not sure why, or if you're new to the subject altogether, then be sure to check out my video where I talk about the sun, moon, and rising sign in astrology and what makes the latter two so much more important when it comes to zodiac signs and forecasts. Let's dive into Gemini characteristics. If you have one or more of your big three placements in Gemini, or if you have 3 or more planets in Gemini, you will find that these strongly apply to you or maybe someone you know. First off, Gemini is an air sign. And just like all air signs, it has an intellectual and social quality. At the core of the zodiac sign is a desire to collect and communicate as much information as possible, with information here being the first keyword to describe the zodiac sign. This is the sign that is driven by curiosity. Second keyword, as it thirsts to discover the world and stay in the know of what's happening around them. People with their big three placements in Gemini are naturally curious. They have this desire to be very knowledgeable about a wide variety of subjects. They get very interested in different things. They find a lot of things fascinating, and they strive to become knowledgeable in different areas. Variety is the third keyword here. And it is something that is very valuable to Gemini because their curiosity knows no bounds. The flip side of this desire to be immersed in as many topics as possible is that it's really easy to become mentally overstimulated. Keyword number 4. People with sun, moon, or rising sign in Gemini can be a little bit scattered. They might lack focus, they might have a short attention span, they might get very easily irritated and anxious due to the mental overstimulation that they're experiencing. They also likely have a tendency to overthink, and they might struggle with concentration. Because they aim to get knowledge in this jack of all trades manner, they might end up knowing bits and pieces about different subjects. However, their knowledge about these areas is rather basic and even superficial, and they rarely ever truly know something and gain mastery in a craft or a topic. They can really get bored very easily, and they tend to move on to the next subject very quickly. That being said, there is a way to capture Gemini's attention, and that is if there is an element of fun or game or some sort of interactive element to keep them engaged. This fun aspect, keyword number 5, helps keep them invested and keep their curiosity going, because the moment things get a bit too boring, dull, or serious, you can lose them. Fun and humor are an important part of the zodiac sign. Gemini natives tend to joke around a lot. They're usually pretty good at it too, and it becomes important for them to maintain this fun and jokey atmosphere in the group that they're in, or that there is a light vibe of communication overall. However, if Mercury, who rules Gemini zodiac sign, or Gemini sign itself, gets many malefic influences in the birth chart, then it tends to play out in a way where a person might not know when to stop with their jokes, and they might take the joke too far. It may become something offensive, or the joke itself might be just very ill-placed. Gemini also is a highly social sign, and in its DNA is this desire to collect, share, and pass on information. This information exchange creates a shared social experience, and for Gemini, this leads to a contact. Now, contacts, keyword number 6, is a prized social currency for our dear Gemini natives. And that is why people who have a very active Gemini zodiac sign in their birth chart are usually chatterboxes. They may like to discuss ideas, or even gossip. Gemini enjoys all forms of communication, keyword number 7, and makes connections very easily. It's important for them to know a lot of people, to have contacts in various walks of life, in various cities, industries, or capacities. The Gemini sign is almost coded to always make sure that there is a connection to hit up should there be need. Gemini aims to have a wide variety of experiences and connections, from colleagues and co-workers to business associates, to just friends who have the same interests, or maybe fellow students that we're in a group with. Because they are such talented communicators, people with Gemini Sun, Moon, Rising, or overall active Gemini tend to do really well in careers that are adjacent to journalism, social media, writing, translation, blogging, and any other form of communication. Gemini natives have a rather free-spirited, keyword number 8, nature. They tend to be very easygoing, spontaneous, and it's very easy to find them in a scenario where they take a spontaneous trip, for example. They also don't do very well with pressure and like to maintain a certain type of autonomy in the different relationships they have, which includes personal and romantic relationships, friendships, as well as business relationships. Gemini natives like to have their space and like to feel like they have their freedom and they have the opportunity to do things the way they want to do them. As mentioned before, Gemini values contacts, and the word contacts here is very intentional because when you have a contact with someone, you're able to keep them at a sort of like arm's distance, and this is typically how Gemini prefers to keep their contacts and acquaintances. It's important for them to know people and have a situational relationship or exchange or a time together with them. However, in their relationships, they like to keep things surface level, and the moment things get a little bit too deep, a little too personal and raw, this sort of depth is a territory that is somewhat uncomfortable for our fun-loving, easygoing Gemini who feels almost suffocated when closeness is imposed on them. Gemini is ruled by Mercury, a planet who rules over all communication, trade, and intellect. And because of this, Gemini natives typically have a very logical, critical thinking, rational side to them, and they're very good at being savvy. Now, because of this savviness, keyword number 9, resourcefulness and ingenuity, Gemini natives tend to do really well as entrepreneurs and tend to do really well in business because they have this like really strong business acumen and a good understanding of what is going to yield them results, returns, gains, profits, and anything of that kind. For this reason, people who have an active Gemini zodiac sign in their birth chart tend to do really well as entrepreneurs, which is also something that we'll see with our celebrity examples. Gemini is a dual sign, and its symbol is a pair of twins. So people who have important chart points in Gemini tend to have a theme of duality take shape in their life in one way or the other. For example, they can have 2 or more income streams, 2 or more different careers. They might live seasonally in 2 countries. But also, one of the ways that it can manifest is that people with an active Gemini sign can be a little bit two-faced and duplicitous. This can be explained by the fact that Mercury, who rules over Gemini, is a planet that has this tendency to imitate when it comes into close contact with other planets in the birth chart. In the celestial org chart, Mercury is still a child, a teenager, and as most children and teenagers who are very impressionable, so is Mercury. So depending on the company that it finds itself in, it can express itself in a more benign way, or it can become a bit more tricky. Now, people with Gemini zodiac sign or active Mercury influence for that matter also inherit this quality where, depending on the situation that they're in, they might adapt to it so well that you start to see them almost as being two-faced because they can go back on what they said, or they can act in a way that is completely different to what you have seen of them before, making you see this sort of duplicity in their personality. On the positive side, the special side effect of imitation, which is the last keyword number 10 for Gemini here, is that people who are Gemini natives are very artistic. They make really good actors, again, because of their ability to imitate and mimic what a character or other people are doing, as well as in general, they are very artistically inclined. One of the explanations for this is that Gemini zodiac sign is connected to the hands as a body part in what we call an abstract zodiac. And because of this, people who are Gemini natives tend to be very good with their hands, and being very artistically inclined, this can manifest as having a talent for playing musical instruments or painting or writing. As we already know, Gemini natives are very good with all things communication. So overall, Gemini natives are very artistically talented, and we will see that with a lot of the celebrity examples that we will look into. Before we move on to the celebrity examples, let's summarize Gemini through the keywords that represent this sign: information, curiosity, variety, overstimulated, fun, contact, communication, free-spirited, savviness, and imitation. And if you're a Gemini and this doesn't quite sound like you, the reason is because you likely have other dominant zodiac sign or planetary placements in your birth chart. And if you want to learn what they are, be sure to check out my video, How to Build and Read a Birth Chart, so you can get familiar with your own birth chart. Here's a curious but very relevant detail about Gemini. As mentioned previously, being ruled by Mercury, who is a teenager in the celestial org chart, it is considered that Gemini as a planet doesn't belong to neither male nor female gender. Because of this, people who are Gemini natives, they tend to resonate really well with gender equality themes. They tend to sympathize or even represent LGBTQ plus community, or even their appearance can have these androgynous features that almost a little bit blended appearance-wise when it comes to masculinity and femininity. Now let's move on to the celebrity examples of Gemini. Up first, we have Margot Robbie, who is an Australian-American movie star and is very much a canonical Gemini. There is no doubt about her being a very talented and high-profile actress, and in the recent years, we've seen her star in a lot of high-profile movies. Now, what sets Margot apart is that she is equally capable at portraying very fun and quirky personalities like Harley Quinn in Suicide Squad or Barbie herself in the movie Barbie, as well as she's also very capable at doing really highly dramatic and intense roles like that of Tonya Harding in I, Tonya, or most recently her role as Catherine in Wuthering Heights alongside Jacob Elordi. Now, this juxtaposition between these like really funny and quirky roles to these dramatic and intense ones shows her versatility as an actress, and versatility and variety, as we now know, is one of the keywords for Gemini. Now, let's pause for a moment and consider her character's arc on Barbie. This is a doll who woke up one day and decided that she no longer wants to just have fun and figure out what she is, who she is, and what she was made for. Now, these themes are very much in line with the Gemini zodiac signs theme, which is this playfulness and fun and superficiality that her character awoke from. Now, somebody like Margot was definitely an excellent choice to portray this kind of character arc. Now, let's look at her birth chart for a minute. Hers is a Gemini rising birth chart with Sun, Mercury, and Jupiter all placed in first house in Gemini. If this birth chart style is unfamiliar to you, kind reminder that I am a Vedic astrologer and we're reading Vedic astrology charts on this channel. And if you don't know how to read it, then be sure to check out my video about how to build and read a Vedic birth chart on my Vedic Astrology for Beginners playlist. Outside of her acting career, Margot is also a producer and an entrepreneur with numerous accolades. In 2017, she appeared on Forbes 30 Under 30 list, which is a compilation of the youngest and brightest entrepreneurs, innovators, trendsetters, and game changers in the world. That same year, Times Magazine named her among the 100 most influential personalities in the world. This further emphasizes themes of duality and versatility, with Margot also highlighting her entrepreneurial savviness. Lastly, Margot is very well known as an active supporter of women's rights, gender equality, as well as LGBTQ plus community. And in 2016, she made a public stance supporting same-sex marriage. Moving on to Exhibit B of Gemini, Frida Kahlo. She was a Mexican painter known for her many portraits, self-portraits, and works inspired by nature and artifacts of the Mexican popular culture. She employed this naive folk art style, and in her work, she explored themes of gender, race, post-colonialism, and identity in Mexican society. All of this resonates very strongly with Gemini themes. First of all, the painting in itself, we've already noted, is something that Gemini natives can gravitate to or be good at, and she's primarily known as a painter. Secondly, her work featured this pop culture influence and experience, and pop culture is something that speaks to the masses and speaks to the times that the person lives in. Pop culture itself is a very Gemini theme because drawing inspiration from pop culture shows a desire to make the work culturally relevant and widely talked about. Now, last but not least, the naive art style is usually understood as the artist is either self-taught, didn't have a lot of time and didn't complete proper painter training, or emulate such a style. With Frida Kahlo, we know that she never formally received any painter education, and everything that she's created, her own unique and signature style, was just something that she was experimenting with and something that she ultimately taught herself to do. And this further emphasizes one of Gemini's themes, which is superficiality, but in a way of never really completing the former training, but rather learning to do something yourself with your own hands. Outside of being known as the painter, many people actually know Frida Kahlo as feminist and LGBTQ plus cultural icon. Frida's unapologetic approach to female sexuality and challenging these societal gender norms were very much ahead of its time. She is celebrated today as a bisexual and queer icon, remembered for openly living her life and paving the way for millions of others to be able to do the same, not submitting to societal pressure or expectations. And even her signature unibrow and slight mustache look emphasizes her anti-conformist and widely feminist views to the fashion and the feminine beauty standards of the time. Now, if you look at her birth chart, here we can see that she is a Leo rising. However, 3 planets, including the sun, the chart ruler, are in Gemini, which makes her very much so a Gemini zodiac sign representative. Once again, if this chart style is unfamiliar to you, be sure to check out my video about how to build a Vedic birth chart so you can keep up with this and many other examples given in this video. Now, let's move on to the third celebrity example for Gemini, and this one's a little bit more controversial. We're going to be talking about Dave Chappelle here, who is known as this really brilliant stand-up comedian who is widely recognized for his social commentary on race, ethnicity, politics, and pop culture. He is globally known for his satirical Chappelle show, as well as for the many Netflix comedy specials that you can view on the platform. Now, the comedy and performance themes that Dave is known for are very much Gemini themes, as we discussed earlier in the video. But for all his brilliance, Dave Chappelle is a great example of when the joke is taken a bit too far. Now, Dave is known for his boundary-pushing commentary. He is a self-proclaimed equal opportunity offender and a warrior against cancel culture. He made some racy jokes and commentary in the past, criticizing the Me Too movement, endorsing and showing support for celebrities who have faced allegations of misconduct and abuse. He justifies his bold and unconventional expression by arguments of artistic freedom and freedom of speech. In 2021, he faced what is probably his biggest public scandal and a way of backlash after his special The Closer, in which his material featured jokes and mocking for the transgender community, for canceling J.K. Rowling, among other things. This generated a lot of public contempt for his persona, as well as condemnation from the LGBTQ plus community supporters and associations. In his birth chart, we see that Dave is a Virgo rising. However, his 10th house of career features 3 planets in Gemini, including the moon, Saturn, and Ketu. Now, Saturn and Ketu are 2 natural malefics, and their placement in the Gemini zodiac sign in Dave's chart would mean that the qualities of Gemini sign are expressed more negatively rather than positively for Dave. In addition to that, when Moon comes into such close contact with both Saturn and Ketu, by itself, regardless of the sign, it can make a person rather cold, insensitive, and emotionally detached. But when it is happening on the Gemini playing field, then of course it manifests in a way where a person can say something really insensitive, take the joke too far, and be provocative and even a little bit cruel with the things that they say. Now, before we close off, I would like to offer a few more honorable mentions for the Gemini Hall of Fame. Elon Musk, an American entrepreneur and one of the richest people in the world, Gemini rising with Mercury and Sun in Gemini. Khloe Kardashian, an American media personality, socialite, and businesswoman. Her chart is an Aquarius rising, but it features 4 planets in Gemini, among them the Sun and the Moon, 2 out of the big 3. Neil Patrick Harris, an American actor, singer, songwriter, producer, television host, and magician, who is most known for his role as Barney Stinson on How I Met Your Mother. The exact time of birth is unknown. However, on the day he was born, 5 out of 9 planets were in Gemini, which very strongly lent him into Gemini camp. Boris Johnson, a British politician and writer, and a former UK minister, who is known, among other things, for the Partygate. He is a Virgo rising with 3 planets in Gemini, including the Sun. Matt LeBlanc, an American actor who gained popularity for his role of Joey Tribbiani on the sitcom Friends, Gemini rising with Mercury placed in the 1st house in Gemini. Jian Ghomeshi, a scandalous Canadian broadcaster, journalist, writer, producer, and a former CBC personality. His is a Sagittarius rising chart with Mercury and Moon in Gemini. This is it for Gemini. Thank you so much for watching, and be sure to subscribe to my channel not to miss any upcoming videos.